Hello YouTube, and welcome to part 2 of my laser cutter Buildlog series. In part 1, I cut the mounting assembly for all 4 steppers and mounted all lead screws as well. And today I'm gonna be cutting and mounting the brackets that will connect my laser bed to the lead screws. Let's get started. I'll be cutting the parts out of a 10mm polycarbonate sheet, first using a small cutter for the holes, and then using a bigger one for the rest and cutout. I did, however, from the start have a too aggressive spiral cutting angle, so the cutter was deflecting like crazy, as you can see. So I stopped it, changed the G-code and tried again, which went a lot better. But by the third hole, I noticed the cutter was melting the polycarbonate, so I stopped it again, removed the melted gunk around the cutter, lowered the spindle RPM and tried again to avoid the bit from rubbing too much. Meanwhile, I needed to extend the stepper motor wires, so I braided the wire, added heat shrink, and soldered in a 4-wire extension cable and repeated on all 4 steppers, of course. Now that the holes were done, I changed the cutter to a 6mm single flute for the pockets and cutouts. I added holding tabs so the CNC could take care of itself. Finally, the pieces were done, so I broke them off the sheet and started by filing away the tabs, which wasn't too hard. Next up was fitting the brass nut to the part, but I couldn't get it to fit, so I remeasured and surely the hole was 1/10 of a millimeter off. So I drilled the hole with a 10mm drill bit, and by turning while drilling, I could get a little bit wider diameter. I then pressed the nut into the part and fixed it into place with some screws and some plastic glue. Lastly, in order to mount the part to the bed, I needed to file down some screws as they were a bit too long. I then attached the nuts to the lead screws and added all the screws with the hammer nuts. Finally, I put in the bed and used spare profiles as guides and fixed it into place. Now all I had to do was put the wires from all steppers into the driver and test it. And putting the wires in the plug turned out to be quite a challenge. But I managed. Now I already tried having all these cables in this plug, but somehow it made a high frequency noise, so I tested every single stepper individually and it worked fine. Now let's see if it works. I ran the bed up and down and of course it wasn't quite straight, so I needed to adjust it quite a bit before getting it to run true. The high-pitched noise is due to running all 4 steppers from one driver, as wiring them in parallel will decrease the resistance, causing the steppers to make this sound. I have yet to install limit switches, as I just run the bed all the way down until all 4 steppers stall, and that's it. With some finer adjustment on the driver and Mach 3, the bed stays level without any steppers stalling. So far, I have had to adjust it only twice in a longer period of time. Maybe in the future I'll add limit switches, but it's not a priority. The sound, however, is pretty annoying, so I'm gonna buy a stepper driver for each of them and add that in the future. All in all, quite happy with it, and it gives me a total travel of 170mm. In the next part, I'll be installing my 3rd attempt of the water cooling, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and if you're still here, check out the Buildlog introduction as you can see my failed water cooling attempts, and other mistakes made during my laser cutter build. Until next time, bye!